Well, now that we know the basics of entering formulas and using functions, let's take a few minutes to practice with some more Excel functions. In this lesson, we're going to review the count, sum, and average functions, and then we're going to see how to add more criteria to each of these by using their IF and IFS counterparts. In our example, we're going to utilize the sales figures in our table, and that's going to be in column F for our aggregations. In order to simplify the exercises, all the columns in our data have already been given named ranges so that they're easier to reference when we build our formulas. For instance, the employee column can be referred to with the name range employee, employee ID, and so on. And we're only going to use a couple of these for our example, but we included the named ranges so you can play on your own if you like. So the first thing that we want to do is we just want to use the basic functions to get the basic metrics for sales. So I'll go to C8, and here I'm going to use the simple count function. So I'll go to my formula builder, and I'll start typing the word count. Now if you've used it recently, you'll see it right there. If you haven't, you can start typing count, or you can scroll down and look for it. Mine's right here, my most recently used, so I'll click on count. And now it's asking me for my values. Again, because I have a named range, I can just type that named range in here. And as soon as you see numbers appear in a result, you can hit the return key and it'll enter that count. Now I can move over to sum, and I'll use my sum function, and I'll do the same thing there. I'm going to sum up the sales. Got a result down there, so I can hit return. And now I'll go to average. Now that's pretty good. I got the count, the sum, and an average of everything in our table. But there's a lot of cases where you don't want to see everything. You want Excel to be able to limit the list. So what we've done in our second example is we have an employee drop-down based on the employees in the employee column. We want to use our employee drop-down to limit our aggregations. So we only want to count the cells assigned to Laura, or sum the cells assigned to Laura, and so forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to what's called the Countif function. Now all the major aggregations in Excel, sum, count, average, max, min, all have an if component to them. So we'll go look, and I don't see it right away. So I'll go ahead and start typing countif. And I get the countif function. So now it's going to ask me for a range, and that's going to be the range of cells that I want to count. And it's also going to be based on what I filter on. So here for the countif, I have my range has to be the actual employees because that's what I'm going to filter on. And once I type my range, I can go to criteria, and in criteria, I didn't name the actual cell that has the employee's name. So I'll just click there, and it'll fill in B13, and the result is 1. I've only got one record that Laura is a part of, so I'll hit return. Now if I want to test that, I can click the drop down and try some other employees. And you see how the countif function automatically changes no matter who I click on. It's counting all the employees in our table based on that employee name. So let's go ahead and do the sumif function. That works the same as the countif. It's going to give us the opportunity to have a criteria and only sum those that meet the criteria. The first argument here is the actual range of cells we want summed, because we might have a criteria on a different column. So my range here is going to actually be the employee column because that's what I want to filter this list by. And then my criteria for that is going to be the employee name in B13. But then my sum range, this is the actual cells that we want to sum up. And this is going to be our sales numbers. So we've got a result here, 6378. I've put in the range of what I want to filter on, my filtered value, which is actually B13, and then the numbers to sum up when I do that, which is in the sales range. Go ahead and hit return, and you'll see if I click on different names, remember Laura only had one, she had one sale for 680. The sumif and the countif limit what you can see. Let's do the average if just for practice. Now I've got my range. I'm going to choose employee. My criteria for the employee is going to be that employee name. And then the average range is the same as we used in the sum. It's going to be sales. So this sounds about right. Maria had 10 sales for a total value of $62.78 and an average of $6.28. That's easy to figure out. Well, now let's go to the final group of functions we're going to look at in this lesson, the if-s functions. SUMIFs and Countifs and AverageIfs are really powerful, but they only work when you want to limit based on one criteria. The if-s functions were added in 2007, and they expand our capability to add as many criteria as we want to a SUMIF or a Countif. So let's just go ahead and go to C18 and we'll type in Countifs, and I will double click that. And now I get my criteria range 1, and that's just going to be the employee column. And then for criteria 1, I'm going to click on the employee's name in B18. And now notice over to the right, I don't have any more arguments below, but to the right I have a plus. That means I can add an argument. That means this has a variable number of arguments that can be added and added and added. So I'm going to go ahead and click that plus, and I get the opportunity to put another criteria and range in there. So this time it's going to be company or customer. This time it's going to be customer. And the customer name is company H. And now I have a result of 3. I can click plus to add an argument, or I can click minus to take this one away. I'll go ahead and hit return, and you see how I have 3 for Maria on company H. If we look above, Maria had a total of 10, but when I limit by company H as well, we get down to 3. Let's do the SUMIFs and the AverageIfs. So SUMIFs, we start this time with the sum range. And now our criteria range, we're going to go for employee. And criteria 1 is going to be the employee name. Add a criteria. Criteria range 2 is going to be customer. And we can click on the actual customer name and hit return. Now I've got the sum based on these 2 characteristics. And for the average, we'll do the same thing. Start with an average range, which is sales again. Criteria range 1 is the employee. We'll add our criteria by clicking that plus. And criteria range 2 is customer. And hit return. And I'll close the formula builder. So in this lesson, we dug a little deeper into some more advanced formulas for summations and averaging. We saw how Excel has some useful functions for doing conditional aggregations. Go ahead and continue to use the formula builder to help you find and build more useful solutions.